episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about A Mixed Bag of Blood by David Bernstein. Or is it Bernstein? Never know. This is from Sinister Grin Press, and this is a short story collection. So I'm going to go over really quickly the stories that are in here. I'm not going to get into too much detail about each story, maybe a couple of them. But you have the Trojan Plushie, which is, I love that title, and it's a nice revenge story. The Booglin, which is really hard to describe, and I'll get back to that, I think, in a second. Eaten Unalive, which is a story that takes place in a world where there are both zombies and vampires. And I believe it is a world, let's see, oh, I should have been a little more prepared. Amongst the Dead is a novel by Mr. Bernstein, and Eaten Unalive takes place in that same world. I believe that's the case. Okay, so anyway, it's nice not to have to share. That title's a bit of a handful. And again, this one's really hard to describe. So maybe I'll get back to that one. Invasion. I think the title says it all here. It's interesting, more of a pre-invasion story. Samurai Zombie Killer. Possibly the most straightforward title of all. Takes place back in feudal Japan. And there are zombies and a samurai that has to kill them. Small Town Big Trouble is an interesting look at what starts out as a seeming serial killer story turns out to be something else entirely. Bad Cutlery. A possessed kitchen knife. That's an interesting idea. Potty Mouth is about a kid that won't stop swearing and the punishment that his mother comes up with. It's an incredibly gross story. And then finally we have STD, which is about a potentially bizarre sexually transmitted disease, but not quite. I know these are very, very, very strange little synopses, if you could even call them that, for this. But anyway, so those are the stories that are in A Mixed Bag of Blood. Now this is a wonderful short story collection. Right off the bat, as I was reading this, almost from the very beginning, I got that same feeling that I got when I was a kid and I was reading Richard Matheson short story collections for the first time. For those of you who don't know, Richard Matheson is a big name in horror and bizarre fiction, and this is the guy that wrote The Incredible Shrinking Man, Stir of Echoes, Bid Time Return, Duel, I Am Legend. So many great books and short stories. I believe he wrote more episodes of The Twilight Zone, the original series, than anyone other than Rod Serling. Back in the day, I had a bunch of his short story collections, and it was wonderful to sit down and just read those, and a lot of very Twilight Zone type of stuff, with fascinating characters and bizarre things going on, and sometimes a weird twist at the end. And really, that's the same feeling, very nostalgic feeling I got when I was reading this. Just incredibly entertaining short stories. Some of them straight up horrific, stories. The Trojan Plushie, despite the strange name, wonderful title, as I said, is a revenge story. And it's just, uh, as short as these stories are, they really pack a punch. And the Trojan Plushie is a great example of that, because we just, in few words, David Bernstein is able to tell us everything we need to know, and make it impactful. Um, and the main character in the Trojan Plushie, right off the bat, we learn about the tragedy that has affected him, and how horrific that is, and what he's willing to do to exact his revenge. Um, it's very, very powerful. The Booglin, as I said, it's really hard to describe without giving it away, and it starts out very oddly, almost comedically, and yet it becomes very horrifying. And there are a number of stories like that in here. They seem to be almost lighthearted, and yet they're really not. Um, Except maybe Potty Mouth, as gross and disgusting as it is. Uh, it's, I suppose, it's horrifying in a completely different way than the other stories. Still good. Um, there's an annual gross out convention, I think it, or gross out contest. I think it's the Horror World convention. I don't know if Potty Mouth was an entry into that gross out contest, but it certainly could have been. Um, so Eaten Unalive, as I said, takes place, I believe, in the world of, I have to look it up again really quickly. Amongst the Dead, I believe, is the book. I could be completely wrong about this, so I haven't read Amongst the Dead, unfortunately. Um, but as I said, it's a world where vampires have basically always existed, living in the shadows, doing their vampire thing. Uh, and then the zombie apocalypse happens. Basically, you have now zombies and vampires fighting over the same food supply, us poor humans. So this is just a little story that takes place in that great big world. Um, and it's pretty interesting. And if you haven't, like me, if you haven't read Amongst the Dead, I think this is really going to um, pique your curiosity and make you want to read that story or that book. Uh, this is really interesting. And the main character is a vampire trying to survive in this zombie apocalypse world. It's nice not to have to share. I'm really not sure what to say about this without giving anything away. So I will simply say it is about one sister killing another sister, but there's much more to it than that. It's an interesting little piece. Invasion, as I said, more pre-invasion, and it's very character driven, even though there's really only two characters in it. Um, but you get to see sort of a young, burgeoning psychopath or sociopath, um, and it's really all about him. And but there's this invasion element to it, uh, and again, it's with short stories, and especially stories that are this short, and they're very, very quick, not flash fiction, but all relatively short. Um, Hard to talk about without giving anything away. So forgive me if I'm just sort of rambling, because I don't want to spoil this, because you should read this. It's great. Um, just so much fun, like I said, and I love the fact that I had that feeling that I had when I was a kid reading short stories. Um, so Samurai Zombie Killer, again, pretty straightforward title. Uh, a samurai is temporarily released from his duties to go back to his hometown because his mentor is dying. But it turns out there's this whole potential zombie plague, um, and so he has to try to stop it. Simple enough. Very entertaining. I always love a nice, well-written samurai story, and this was very entertaining. Small Town Big Trouble, again, tough to talk about without giving anything away, but as I said, it starts out just seeming like a serial killer story, but it turns out to be something completely different, and where it goes was completely unexpected. Very entertaining. Just again, so reminiscent of that stuff I read when I was a kid. Uh, I don't think Bernstein's going to complain if I compare him to Richard Matheson. Um, so let's see, Bad Cutlery. I like stories with really odd things, and I think a possessed kitchen knife is an odd thing. Um, and again, quite entertaining. I like what happens at the end. Again, very short, nice little twist at the end. Very, very cool. Um, Potty mouth. I've already mentioned it a couple times. Very gross. um, a very, very interesting. Uh, Another revenge tale, but one that's, well, no, not even a revenge, punishment tale, I suppose, is the way to put it. Again, this kid who just, it's got a bad attitude, will not stop swearing. So his mother decides to teach him a very disgusting lesson. And then STD is this guy has a one night stand, ends up with something odd, somewhere sensitive, and it just goes from there. Again, can't say too much, don't want to spoil it, but definitely worth the read. This one's kind of gross as well. I mean, they're all. I don't think any of these are very family friendly, but these last two really get into gross, disgusting territory. But I highly recommend this. I know there are people out there that just are not fans of short stories. I'm not sure why, uh, but you know what? I give it a try. If you're a fan of short stories and horror, you really should read this. It's fantastic. If you're not, uh, I say give it a try anyway. They're all quick. They're all impactful. So it's Mixed Bag of Blood. So what I did for my rating is gave it 4.5 out of 5 bags of blood. And you see what I did here? Xenomorph blood. See, it's acidic, so it burst through the bottom of the bag. That's why it's only half a bag. 4.5. I got my different types of blood there. Hopefully, I got the colors right. Um, but definitely 4.5 out of 5. Really a lot of fun. They pack a punch. Uh, just and a great little quick look at the writing ability of David Bernstein. The other things that I've read by him, a couple of his novels, I really enjoyed. I've reviewed them um, on this channel, and I'm definitely gonna have to pick up Amongst the Dead if I'm correct that that's the world, the zombie vampire world. Um, I mean, I should be picking up everything he's got, but that's I guess that's it for A Mixed Bag of Blood by David Bernstein or Bernstein. 4.5 out of 5 bags of blood. Really entertaining. Check it out from Sinister Grin Press. I will have a link or two for where you can pick up this book. I'll have that in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. So if you want to know any more about any of these stories, just let me know and we'll have a spoilery talk with spoiler warnings because we don't want to spoil it for people. Um, And please like, share, and subscribe. So that's it for the Low Budget Review Show. I have been your host, Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.